All right, everybody, it's your Uncle Ed again. This time we're shaking it up again. Nothing to do with the economy. I'm not going to talk about rates. I'm not going to talk about the Fed. I'll do that tomorrow, Wednesday, when the Fed speaks. But today, I know you're going to find this incredibly inspiring. I talk with a lot of people on a daily basis. And every once in a while, like Haley's Comet, once out of every 76 years, you meet this one person that changes the game, that their story is one of overcoming adversity. It's a story of triumph. It's a story of pivoting. It's a story of courage. It's a story of taking action, doing it anyway. When you're tired, you do it anyway. When you don't feel like it, you do it anyway. When it's not convenient, you do it anyway. This is the story today. I know you're going to be inspired. I know you're going to be motivated because this gentleman's story motivated me. It inspired me to the point where I had to do this interview, and this interview is for you. So you're welcome because you're going to thank me later on. With that, let's welcome Gil Lopez. Mr. Lopez, ¿cómo estamos? Good morning.
Muchas gracias. Wow, that's an impressive intro.
No, it's a real intro. It's a absolutely deserving intro, and I, I can't thank you enough for allowing me to do this because I know, not always is it, it's a little bit private, right? Our stories sometimes are private, and I'm an immensely private person. Even though I'm very social, I'm a very private person. I know that you are too, but I know you're going to inspire a lot of people with your story. So on that note, let's jump in. I know that you started out and you ended your career, your formal career in law enforcement as BART police for, I believe, a little over 30 years. But tell us a little bit just about your origin story. Like, where are your parents from? Where did you grow up? How did you grow up? Paint us a little picture of Gil Lopez, the child.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. As I
Thank you.
mentioned to you before, I never look at myself that way. For example, your intro, I just do what I was raised to do, right? And that is to do the best you can and keep moving forward. And so I'll just briefly, I was born in Southern California, far Southern California, in Imperial County, right along the U.S.-Mexico border. Calexico, California. I was born in the late 60s, uh, dating myself, of course.
Hey,
I
I'm right there with you.
have no issues with that. Yeah, exactly. We're like 3 months apart, right? Um, Parents immigrated in the early 60s, early to mid 60s, from Mexico, Michoacan, to be exact, and along with other family members. As they like to affectionately say, they landed in Imperial County where they worked really hard and but saw more opportunities in the Bay Area, so they came up north, as they say, to San Francisco Bay Area, manufacturing jobs, cleaning houses, that sort of thing. Uh, Partly as a result of that labor, myself and of course my siblings were able to go to private schools for part of our education, and then from there I was able to, I went to a community college for a little bit, uh, continuing the path of education. Right, that was espoused in our family. But, you know, needed money. And of course, motivated me to take on a couple of part-time jobs, one of which led me to the BART Police Department, where I started out as a police cadet. I did that for a little bit over a year, and it was great. It was a great experience, and literally uh, changed my life because I now knew the path that I was going to follow, and that would be in law enforcement. And I did that for almost 30 years, sworn police officer. During that time, I held various assignments, investigator, of course, where everybody starts out in patrol uniform. I was promoted to supervisor and eventually a manager in the police world. I was a lieutenant, and that's what I retired at that rank. Fortunately, I retired in 2018, the end of 2018, so we're coming up on about 7 years. And as I mentioned earlier, kind of skipping over some things here, but it changed my life. It really did. I think I was built for that work, dedicate myself to public service, to others. Um, it was a calling to me, and it still is, to serve others. So, of course, on the personal side, I have four children, two grandchildren, married, of course, and just no matter what I do, I just know that the work ethic that was instilled in me, and of course the belief systems, faith, the belief in education as being a key to exploring the world around you, to figuring out what you want to do in life. I followed all that. I took it to heart, so to speak, uh, and that has seen me through um, a lot of difficult moments as well, but many triumphs uh, because of that. So, so yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
Well, let's unpack this a little bit. So tell me how your upbringing was. So you mentioned that because of the hard work of your parents who were doing, blue collar kind of work, you were able to go to private school. What was the environment like in your home? Was your dad around, or were they always just working? My mom was always working, right? It's just the way it was. She had to in order to make ends meet. What was it like in your household? And how many siblings do you have?
I have three siblings, so there's a total of four of us.
Yeah.
Three younger sisters. The environment at home, I mean, yeah, it was all of the above. My parents, especially my mother, were stay-at-home mom, for example. Father worked. Yeah, especially through my mother, education was huge. Even though she had a very minimal educational experience herself, um, she had very influential family members in her background, as did my father as well. That very educated people, not just formally but informally, love to read. A number of them that I was fortunate enough to meet enjoyed writing. Very good speakers, a number of them. So that the question started out with what was the home environment? Well, that was all part of it. Stories of the people, right, of your family. That influenced me a lot, a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, I was very fortunate to meet some of those influential people in our family. And then there was the people outside of the home that close friends of my parents that were also influential in their own way. These were at the time when I was growing up. Uh, there was always family members either at a celebration, coming over to visit, or we'd go visit them. And of course, as a young kid, you're taught to obviously mind the elders, right? You 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 pay attention. There's a lot of respect that's expected from you toward those that are older than you. And of course, that was part of the influence. I didn't know it at the time, but that was part of the influence, right? Respect for others. Um, and so there was a lot of influence there outside the home as well. But in the home, it was, there was a course that I remember going to or participating in when I was working, and it was had to do with ethics, morality, those topics. And there was something that made absolute sense. It sounds simple, but it made absolute sense. And that is the course instructor mentioned, would you want your mother to see your actions on the front page of the news the next day? And if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't go forward with whatever it is you're going to get involved in. Um, so I had many similar sayings or examples as I was growing up, but the simplicity of that statement to me just made complete 100% sense to me. And I guess if I had to round up or just summarize my upbringing, uh, it's that. That what was instilled in me to do the best that I could, and and it continues to this day.
Yeah, I have a similar one, but it's more of like when people aren't watching, how are you behaving? Right? That's what counts. And I love the fact that even though they didn't have as much education, they still instilled education. I mean, it's to the point where I know it's probably a little subconscious, but even your background right now on Zoom, the fact that you have a library, I don't think that's coincidental. I mean, I think the fact you probably read a ton. I had a grandfather who didn't graduate. I think he graduated like seventh or eighth grade, but he was so worldly because he read like a monster. He was an avid reader. He had a library as extensive as it gets. I mean, it blew away even your background.
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, it was yeah, the background. I mean, obviously it's Photoshop, but it calls to me. This is what calls to me. These are the things that call to me: is the reading, the writing. Of course, nowadays we have podcasts, long form podcast. I love that. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm the
definitely.
same way. Very good. So tell me about how did you end up at BART Police? You had mentioned to me that you went to a career fair or something like that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so actually, it was at the local community college in San Pablo, Contra Costa Community College. Spent some time there. Um, it was random, actually. I was in between classes. It was. Uh, I remember I was with some friends, and we were going from one class to the next, and they had some booths set up there. A number of companies, of course, law enforcement was there, and mind you, I coming out of high school, I cannot remember the name of this. Not even a test. It was a questionnaire that pointed you. It's almost like an MBTI, right? It points you in the direction of your personality and what most likely what type of work or business you might be apt to perform really well in. And so I remember taking that in high school, and it said for me police officer, right? And at the time, I thought, that's all good and well, but I want to make money, and I want to go into business, and that's what I want to do. What that looks like, I don't know, but that's what I knew. So randomly, back at the community college, there was a career fair. Just so happened that BART Police had a booth set up there. People in uniform, of course, passing out information about the department, applications, that sort of thing. Uh, so I filled out an interest card there, little 3x5 card, um, and didn't think too much of it afterwards. I went to class, and that was it. The rest of the day for that day is lost to my memory at this point. But long story short, a couple of weeks later, I received a call at home from the recruiter that was there from BART Police, Flora Monroe. I remember her name. Um, and she essentially asked, "Hey, are you interested in a career in law enforcement?" I said, "Well, yeah, I am." And I told her the same story I just told to you about high school, but that I was thinking about wanting to go into business, not sure what. And of course, in the meantime, I was at the college taking the general education, the requisites to eventually move on to 4 year college. And so she says, "Well, it sounds like you are still trying to figure out what to do, but in the meantime, hey, we've got a paying job for you if you want to apply for it, and that's a police cadet. It's part-time. You can still go to school and make a little bit of money." I thought, okay, you know, I'll try it out, and I did. I went in. There was an interview. I looking back now, I was so um, I had no idea how to dress for this or anything like that. I basically came in the same clothes that I had just left the community college that day to be interviewed. And fortunately for me, the interviewers at that time, I mean, I think they recognized that here's this kid, he wasn't instructed or told how to dress for this, even though it's a part-time job. I mean, you still should be professional about it, right? And don't get me wrong, I wasn't there with holes in my shirt or anything like that, but I basically sweatshirt and some jeans, and that sort of thing. But I just triggered a thought right now. I wish I could ask those folks that were in that interview, what they see in me, because you know, they they passed me along, right? They said, hey, report to work on X date, and come ready to work, come ready to learn, and that was it.
Wow. What a story. Yeah. I mean, there's these inflection points in our lives, right? That just change the whole course. And you're right. I mean, sometimes people see things in us that we don't see, right? Like you mentioned, even just starting out, that you don't see yourself the way I described you, but that's in fact a really interesting observation, because it's important that we also are aware of how we show up in the world and how we show up to other people, because people are watching. I mean, yeah, we've gotten busier and busier as a society, but the truth is, people are watching. How do we behave? And then ultimately, we attract more of the energy that we put out. That's why I'm always cognizant of how I behave, right? Make sure that I always set the example, not just for my family and my son, who's 11, but also just in my business world and everything. Because I believe the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So, at what point do you decide to get your master's degree? Because man, you climbed the ladder educationally too.
Yeah, that was something that so when I went to go I worked at BART part-time, as I mentioned, for a little over a year. I think it was a year and 3 months, year and 6 months, thereabouts. Um, but education, as I mentioned earlier, formal education was always something that I was striving for. I was trying to figure out my path in the world, while simultaneously having this uh, the pull from the education. So once I began working full time, sworn, I had gone through the police academy in late '89, actually summer of '89, and then by late '89 I graduated from the police academy, and then from that point forward, it's full time work. Um, but this itch, I'll call it, for education, formal, was always there. It never went away. And through the years, as I was working for the first decade and a half, 10, 15 years, I was going back and forth, community college, taking courses, back and forth. And eventually I attended a undergraduate degree in criminal justice management. Not surprising, right? And then, but the itch continued. And by this time, I was a supervisor, and eventually a manager. Now, the itch is just too much. I have to go back. It's like a calling, basically. And I work on a master's, and I complete that. Um,
What year did you complete it?
2017, I think it was. Mind you, this whole time I'm working,
Yeah.
uh, and working on that. But once I finish the master's, I think, maybe the doctorate um, will be the next step. But by that time, my career in police work is almost over. And this whole time, I don't want to make it sound as if there was no vacation, right? There was no fun days or anything like that, because there was and continues to be. But my mind was primarily focused on my work and my family. And sometimes I'll admittedly too much on work. There were a number of things that the organization was going through at the time, toward the end of my career, say the last 5 years or so, and society-wide, really, that necessitated all hands on deck, if you will. And I loved it. I loved it, and it consumed a lot of my time. Uh, but when it was time to rest, it was time to rest. And even then, it continues to this day. There's always something burning inside of me that I just want to keep moving. I want to keep growing. I want to keep building. I want to keep learning um, as much as I can.
And that's what really, really impressed me about you, Gil, that you have never talked about age You haven't talked about limitations. You talk in abundance. You talk in action oriented language. And that's what I really want everybody to hear. And we're going to get to the point where he makes the switch because he always had that business mindset. Keep in mind, we haven't forgotten this. Uncle Ed hasn't forgotten. We're going to talk about how he then transitions into real estate, becoming an investor here in a second. But the fact that you're so good at compartmentalizing and just saying, okay, I'm going to do this while doing this, I think is a huge testament to dedication and commitment, in that it doesn't have to be overnight. Don't overwhelm your brain, because what happens a lot of times, people will decide not to do something because in their mind they feel like it has to happen right now and it's going to kill everything else in their life. Notice how we talked about he's also having fun. So he's doing it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This took years. This wasn't like overnight. uh, I always like to joke that, yeah, it takes 20 years to become an overnight success, right? But it's true. The way you do it is you do it in pieces, but you stay focused on the prize, right? You stay focused on, if you want to get your degree, or you stay focused if you want to write a book, or whatever it is that you want to do. It's not or, it's and. Start to train your brain to think in and terms as opposed to this or that. No, it's this and that, right? So let's talk about how you then make the transition into real estate. When does this happen and why and how?
You're absolutely right, Ed. The business side of my mind, if you will, has never gone away. In fact, while I was working, let me go back a little bit. Um, while in high school, I met a gentleman a day before he was married. He was an alumnus of the high school I went to, and I was instructed because, uh, as I mentioned before, I had the opportunity to go to throughout elementary and eventually in high school. At times in elementary school, I should say, I was able to go to private schools. Um, I say that uh, sometimes, and people think, you go to private school, ooh, you come from money, right? And that was not the case, not financially. Um, Eventually, I'm in high school, and the first year and a half or so, I had to work after school for my tuition, partly. The other part of the tuition was partly funded through what they called a scholarship at the time. And my parents contributed a certain amount, a small amount, but so we got a lot of help financially. So fast forward, I believe it was a Friday, and one of the priests directs me to go help out this gentleman. His name is Frank. Um, Go help him in the cafeteria. He's going to get married tomorrow. Set up some tables and chairs, and that'll be part of your tuition work. Sure, no problem. I thought, it's going to be about an hour and a half, a couple hours, then I'm on my way. It's Friday night, I'm in high school, hang out with my cousins, and that's it. Well, about 5 hours later or so, I'm leaving the cafeteria, and it was one of those things where Frank's mother's there. I think his aunts were there, and they're directing traffic, so to speak, where it's put the table here, put the chairs there, decorations here, that sort of thing. And I didn't complain. I was given the direction to go help him out. He's a friend of the school. That's it. That's all I know. I didn't think anything of that other than, well, this turned into a 4 or 5 hour adventure that I thought was going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours, but fine, whatever. Uh, about 6 months later, I get a call from Frank, and he says, Gil, I want you to come work with me. I just bought a 4 unit apartment complex in a nearby city, and I got to rehab the whole thing. And he's talking in language that I've never heard before. Rehab, plumbing, painting. What's that? Uh, and he says, "Don't worry, I'll teach you everything. But I need to get these things up and running, and they need to be rented as soon as possible." Okay. I said yes again. Of course, he had already checked with the school. Wanted to come meet my parents. They wanted to make sure, right, that he's not some um, criminal or anything like that. So his background checked out, and that was it. That first weekend that I worked with him, I think I ended up spending the night. We ended up spending the night there in the apartments because we were doing so much work. Um, and that began my real estate experience. From that point forward, I would do jobs for him, and eventually, as I got my full-time job, he and I we lost touch a little bit, and then reconnected, and then eventually we became partners on a single-family home, which we then turned 1031 exchange and into a 5-unit apartment complex, all in the Bay Area still. And then from there, we grew a little bit more and eventually uh, purchased a handful of apartment complexes. And we accepted a third partner and eventually became an LLC. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And notice is that sometimes life presents you a window of opportunity. So the question is, are you taking that opportunity, or is that window shutting on you? And then you look back and you live a I wish, right? The could have, should have, would have. Don't be in the could have, should have, would have business. Be in the business of allowing opportunity and abundance into your life, because it comes sometimes in the form of him helping out at a wedding to pay for, right, getting a scholarship. Notice how the two are completely two different worlds that you would never think would collide. But when you have a mindset of abundance and a mindset of opportunity, and you take those opportunities, then this is what happens. Look, he transitions. He retires early from BART Police. But in high school, he's given this opportunity. He doesn't even know what this is all about. The guy's talking in strange language. I'm sure you had a ton of education, even just that weekend that you spent with them, because all the terminology you're starting to soak in, you're starting to be introduced into a world you had no idea about. And here we are today. Now you're a full-blown real estate investor getting cash flow from this, and he's able to retire early. Do you see how all these things are tied? I call it the art and the mastery of the daisy chain. How do you daisy chain one thing and one person into other people, other opportunities? And that is really the story today, everyone, is, are you navigating your life with your eyes and your ears wide open? Are you looking and seizing the moment, taking those opportunities? Because this changed this man's life. He didn't come from money. Okay? He still pursued education. He didn't come from a business background or pedigree. He still pursued business and real estate as a second career, if you will. And look, here we are today, where he's in a situation where he's actually buying some more property, which is how I enter into the picture. And I just think that's just a beautiful story. And it is a story that I really hope inspires you all, that no matter where you're at right now, doesn't necessarily mean that's where you're going to be at tomorrow. It's not how you start that matters. It's how you finish. So I always say this: finish strong. But how do you finish strong? Number one, taking opportunities. Number two, taking action. Are you educating yourself on a daily basis? Right now, we're living in a time where, look, we have access faster and more information than ever before. Definitely much more than when we were growing up, right, Gil? I mean, we didn't have a phone where we can go and chat GPT how to become a real estate investor. No, we didn't have that at all. You have the opportunity now to leverage that speed and all that information, but at the same time, is who are you surrounding yourself with? Because it's 100% true. We are the average of the 5 people we hang out with. Have you made an inventory of the people you're hanging out with? Are you hanging out with the Gills, or are you hanging out with the no frills people, right? The people who are poisoning your opportunities? I suggest maybe sometimes it's time to do some spring cleaning. And I'm not talking about your house, right? Sometimes it's time to spring clean their brain. What's the type of information you're ingesting? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Because believe it or not, the subconscious is a big and real thing. and it takes in information all the time. If you're looking at negative stuff, if you're spending your days with negative stuff, don't be surprised if you get negative results. Gil, tell us, give us some takeaways that you've taken out of your life so far. What are some of the things that you would like to impart on the people who are watching? I've said a lot, so I want to give the mic back to you since you've accomplished so much, both academically, career wise, and now in real estate. What would you say to the person that's watching right now that is maybe just stuck? They feel stuck or they don't know what to do. They would like to do X, Y, Z, but they're stuck. They feel like they're in quicksand.
I think some of the takeaways I would definitely uh, provide for people would be have an open mind, an open mindset. As I look back on some of the circumstances that presented themselves to me, arguably when I was younger, I'm just soaking things up, knowledge, information, friendships. I'm learning, but my mind was always open to any possibility. Um, and I would also say that taking a step by step. Um, you said it earlier, Ed, that many times people want it to happen right now, if not at all, right? And it takes work. It takes a lot of work. But don't be discouraged by that. You take that first step, no matter what it is that you want to do, whether it's you want to go into investing, be it real estate or the stock market, whatever it may be. Um, Heck, now you can even purchase a book online, right? And even read a book digitally. Purchase that book, listen to that podcast. That's a step or steps. Um, Learn as much as you can about whatever it is that you're interested in. But again, a lot of that, the base for that, a lot of that for me has always been just having an open mind, not shutting things down right away or, oh, that's too much work or, that's just not me, that sort of thing. I mean, yes, you eventually learn to filter I think as you mature, right? What's right, what's wrong, or for me at least, or that doesn't really call to me kind of thing. But even then, there's still an open mindset that you should always have. And then, of course, taking action. I think the third and final point is an attitude. Uh, Outside of private circles, probably I don't repeat it too much, but maybe I should, and I'll say it here, I guess, for the first time, is to be relentless in anything that you do.
Ooh, that's
Relentless,
powerful. Yeah,
relentless.
be relentless. As the Texans say, should go big or go home, right?
There,
Yeah, be relentless. Thank you so much, man. Again, I feel restored with your with your story. It brings me back to our original conversation, and it's just so inspiring. I want to leave all of you with some books that I think are really appropriate. Number one is Think and Grow Rich. Definitely read that book. Number two is The Richest Man in Babylon. Third is Rich Dad Poor Dad. And then the fourth one is The Millionaire Next Door. Read all these books. And by the way, this isn't just about money. Okay. Money is an innate object. However, when you don't have to worry about money, that's where you start doing the real work. Think about this. Think about if you never had to worry about money. What would you be doing? Probably volunteering, right? Helping others. Because remember, every dollar above and beyond our needs is a dollar of opportunity to sow seeds in other people's lives. And at the end of the day, the purpose driven life is a real thing. And it is ultimately what you will find to be your life calling. Because at the end of our life, everything has to be about something bigger than ourselves. So, Gil, on that note, thank you again so much, man, for doing this, for being transparent, for being raw. I really appreciate your story. I appreciate you. And I hope all of you did too. I hope you got a lot of nuggets out of this. Stay blessed, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.